Thank you very much for coming to the Humanities and University of Hertfordshire launch of Cold Crash. I'm very excited to be launching this here because it really wouldn't have happened without the support of the School of Humanities. And Jeremy Ridgman in particular was very good at encouraging me to make time for my writing in the rest of my schedule. So it's been a process of about 5 years to get this book to print. It started from the idea of writing something that involved archaeology and espionage, because there's a lot of, especially in history, there are a lot of examples of archaeologists who were involved in espionage. And it started a conversation in the pub with my husband about the historic instances of this and how Max Falkland was a really great name. And that was about as far as we got in the pub. So, and I didn't even know if Max Falkland would be a man or a woman at that point, but I liked the name. And then from that, based partly on a great love of the TV show MASH, an interest in the 1950s, I decided I would set it in the 50s around the Korean War. And I chose 1952 in particular because it's a time of rising optimism in Britain. Things are coming off rationing. There's Elizabeth coming to the throne. But for the Falkland family, they have a personal tragedy in that their son's been shot down in Korea. So to me, those were all quite exciting combinations to go with. And I wanted to make Max Anglo-American, partly to cover any gaps in my British knowledge. And also because I think that divide, having two countries, makes quite an interesting background for a character, coming from having two countries for the last 16 years. So that's where Max Falkland started. What I then had to do was an immense amount of research to get the historical period right. I was talking to Helen Gordon, the other lecturer in creative writing, and she was quite surprised that I hadn't fudged more than I did, because I didn't realize this, apparently I'm quite obsessive for getting the detail right. So one of the songs I was playing before it started was Tenderly. And it was a song that I started listening to online because I saw it came out in 1952 in the spring. What I then realized later was it was the American release date, and Rosemary Clooney didn't release an album until like 56 in Britain. And so I made it that her American grandmother had posted her the record because I wanted that to be right. I know no one's going to check that, but it matters to me. So what I'm going to read 3 different scenes from the novel, from 3 different points in the novel. I'm going to start with the prologue. I had a big debate about including a prologue. Prologues aren't considered to be the thing now, apparently. This is what I've been told. But because Max has had a personal tragedy, at the beginning of chapter 1, she's just come out of mourning. She's quite static in the first pages of the novel, and I didn't want to start the novel with a static female character. I wanted to show her being active. So the prologue actually is further in, it's a snapshot of further into the novel where she is very active and something happens. So that's how I came across it, the prologue. And with this novel, I won the Cinnamon Press Novel Prize. And in the winning notes, they said one of the reasons I won it was because of the prologue. So I felt justified in leaving it in. Prologue. The blade nestled on the seabed beneath the crushed kelp. Had anyone else seen it in the 1,000 years since a storm washed it overboard from its Viking ship? Or had it slid out of a man's dying grasp as the vessel tipped into the water? Max tilted her neck, fighting the constriction of her suit, and a finger of icy water cascaded down her spine. She yelped against her mouthpiece, but the sound simply absorbed into her bubbling expiration. Her crayon floated away on its string. She reached out to recapture it, the slow movement of her arm, encased in black rubber, still baffling her. She had rendered the sword fragment as accurately as she could in thick gloves. On land, her drawing would have been precise. She let the current drift her away from the area of bruised kelp. Half an hour in this murkiness. Time to surface, wrap herself in a blanket, and consume as much coffee as the thermos contained. The damage to the kelp looked recent. Whatever caused it had to be bigger than her plane, and unlike the Viking ship, it had not remained on the seabed long. Her fin brushed over the waving fronds, and another dull glint emerged. Max forced herself lower and parted the long leaves. A blade, yes, but one not forged by Viking hands. It matched the one strapped to her right thigh, but instead of being shiny and new, this knife's handle bore dents and scrapes of long use. The water gave a startling crispness to the shape imprinted on its side. Worn, partial, but a letter, and not a Roman letter. A tiny space remained on her tablet, and she made a rougher, faster sketch of the knife. The half letter she drew enlarged, positioning it beside the knife, and then she hooked the tablet on her weight belt. 35 minutes underwater, but still she hesitated. The Viking sword needed to say in situ, but this couldn't be more than 10 years old. The knife slid easily into the sheath on her leg, and she kicked her way towards the surface. The shadow of her boat broke, shuddered, and reformed. Max floated, staring at the silhouette above. Maybe it always shifted like that. The down line she held stayed constant. She blinked. One mass. She continued to ascend, tracing her hand along the rope. On the surface, Max spat out her mouthpiece and gulped air. Air that didn't taste like rubber, that she could inhale and exhale without the cacophony of noise underwater. How could Victor prefer diving to land archaeology? The gray clouds overhead matched the dark water breaking around her as she treaded water. Shame we missed each other in London, Dr. Falkland. Max shuddered. His conversational voice couldn't reach the half mile from shore. She could dive back down, escape, hide, but for how long? Maybe 15 minutes of air remained. Pale sunlight glinted against her mask, and then she saw him. John Knox leaned against the wheelhouse of her boat. "How did you find me?" she asked. If her voice wavered, well, the wind blowing against her wet hood and making her teeth chatter would make anyone's teeth chatter. Her tablet knocked against her leg, tapping the blade. He would see the sketches. More to the point, he'd see the knife's Cyrillic letter. Guess how many pretty American women rent boats on the Isle of Mull in April? I'm not American. She peeled off her mask, the chill assaulting her eyes. Smoke curled from his cigarette. The narrow shape disrupting the left side of his blue jumper had to be a gun. She detached her tablet and kept it under the shadowy water. You sounded. His own accent had blurred into neutrality, a generic American that couldn't be pinpointed to a single state or region. Was anything about this man honest? I'd appreciate it if you kindly got the hell off my boat. Her cold fingers worked to tie the tablet by its crayon string to the line, but she had to bite off one glove to manage it. What are you doing? He stepped towards the ladder and flicked his cigarette overboard, towards the small sailboat moored to her boat. Her tablet plummeted, but at least he wouldn't reach it. She unfastened her weight belt quickly and heaved it over the side of the boat. He jerked his boot out of the way just in time. Not nice, Dr. Falkland. Bad aim. He reached his hand towards her, no sign of the gun. With a deep breath, she put her ungloved hand into the heat of his.